Construction activities can involve numerous hazards to both people and the environment. To prevent potential accidents, it is crucial to raise safety awareness among all parties involved in the construction project before the project begins. Construction project risk assessment ensures the safety of workers and visitors by mitigating the risk of workplace accidents. Conducting a risk assessment for work on construction sites is a common requirement and is taken seriously everywhere. In case of violation of the requirements, work on the construction site will be stopped. Risk assessment comprises several components. Overall construction site safety organization. It encompasses safety policies and the allocation of responsibilities. Safety policy outlines the principles and procedures for ensuring safety, while the allocation of responsibilities defines who is accountable for different safety aspects. For instance, it describes the use of personal protective equipment, arrangements for first aid, and actions in the event of an accident. Hazards on the construction site. Hazardous tasks. Implemented safety measures. Outlines risk assessment methods and evaluates hazards, their likelihood, consequences, and the level of risk for various types of work. Hazards could be physical, such as working at heights and using machinery. Environmental risks like exposure to noise, dust, and chemicals, and ergonomic hazards related to work postures and movements. Implemented safety measures identifies hazards and risks, detailing safety measures and preventive actions. Risk assessment and risk analysis begin in the design phase of a building. It is crucial to consider how to complete the project as safely as possible from the outset. When evaluating potential construction risks, designers must also plan for safety measures. For instance, if work at heights is anticipated, it is necessary to plan for the use of appropriate safety equipment. Anchor points that can withstand the expected load, and where safety gear or guardrails can be attached to prevent falls are planned for. A separate risk analysis is prepared for construction site activities, considering all site works and their specifics. The framework for this is provided by a system document prepared by the company, which includes a safety or environmental management plan. The safety plan contains project details, start and end dates of work, client information, project and site manager details, and the safety coordinator's details. It includes a brief description of the construction project, characterizing the building such as the number of floors, intended use, information related to the construction schedule, important work process stages analyzed, and so on. The most significant sources of risk and hazardous works are also identified. The safety plan also outlines measures to reduce risks and a set of safety requirements and rules that must be followed on site, such as how to position materials, what personal protective equipment is mandatory for the site, etc. In addition to the company's risk analysis, the main contractor's risk analysis must also be considered. All workers on the site must be familiar with the rules and the safety plan. A personal safety declaration is completed and signed. First aid providers are designated, with at least 2 required, and a person responsible for environmental safety. All workers must know how to act in an emergency, where to go, whom to notify. The company appoints a safety coordinator for the construction site. This person has received safety training from the company for the safe execution of site works. The safety coordinator, typically the construction project manager, is responsible for complying with safety requirements on the construction site. All necessary information is available on the site's information board to ensure that information related to work duties is visible and accessible to workers. Employers are required to provide workers with personal protective equipment, such as clothing, footwear, and other means designed to protect employees from accidents or illnesses related to work. These provisions must meet the basic requirements for occupational health and safety. Employers ensure that the protective equipment meets the necessary protection level is suitable for specific work conditions, fits the user, meets ergonomic requirements, and is in accordance with the worker's health condition. Employers are also obligated to provide each worker with a personal locker for storing work clothes and personal things, and to keep a record of the issuance of protective equipment. Workers' protective equipment is intended for personal use only. Failure to wear personal equipment is considered a serious violation of occupational safety requirements. Work clothes and personal protective equipment are issued against a signature and must be returned when leaving the job. The typical mandatory protective equipment is safety footwear. On construction sites, footwear with slip-resistant and puncture-resistant soles must be used. Knee pads must be used for floor work and other jobs involving kneeling. Earmuffs or plugs must be used for noisy tasks. Safety glasses are mandatory for tasks that could harm the eyes. High-visibility work clothing, such as high-visibility vests or jackets, must be always used on construction sites. Wearing a safety helmet on a construction site is compulsory everywhere. Masks must be used for certain tasks, such as sanding and painting. All protective equipment must comply with international standards. Before starting work, an employee must familiarize themselves with the specific safety instructions for the tool or equipment they will use. Get to know the risk analysis of the construction site, which includes the identified hazards, levels of risk, and related preventive measures. Dress in the prescribed work attire, button up the cuffs, make sure there are no loose ends, and properly arrange personal protective equipment. Check the workplace and remove any unrelated obstructive items. Ensure that all necessary tools and equipment are in good working order. Any discovered deficiencies must be immediately reported to the site management. Work should not commence until all conditions for safe operation are met. During work, an employee must be careful and attentive to not put themselves or anyone else in danger. Follow the specific safety instructions and the usage and maintenance guide for the tool or equipment. Follow the work instructions. Adhere to the usage instructions for the construction materials. Comply with the preventive measures listed in the construction site's risk analysis. After work, an employee must tidy up the workplace and return any used tools and similar items to their designated places. Switch off all electrical devices. Lighting. Leave work clothes and personal protective equipment in the designated place. For safe construction work, workers involved in lifting operations must have completed a rigger training. Foreign workers involved in lifting tasks must have completed an international rigger training. The workers must ensure that the load is correctly placed on the lifting slings. The volumetric elements have designated locations for lifting straps, and a spreader beam is used for lifting operations. A safety factor that always requires special attention is the risk of falling from heights, but there can be various hazards on a construction site. For instance, the installation of scaffolding can occur simultaneously with the erection of the building. Scaffolding being installed on one side of the building, while modules are being lifted on another. This can easily lead to a situation where the zones of different works intersect after some time. Working under a lifted load is strictly prohibited, and the lifting zone must always be segregated. Only those who are actively working in the lifting zone are allowed to be present. It's also important to be aware of hazards that are mostly hard to foresee, such as the breaking of a crane's cable, which has actually happened and occurs rarely, but is all the more unexpected when it does. When working on a roof, there is a risk of falling from a height, which requires safety measures to be implemented for falls from over 2 meters, such as guardrails, safety nets, and similar protective equipment. The risk of falling is greatest during the winter months when the roof surface may be icy and very slippery. If the nature of the work makes their use impossible, The worker must be provided with a safety belt or harness and secured with safety lines, or use other securing methods. Additionally, safety measures must also be applied for smaller fall heights if the nature of the work involves a special risk of falling or the risk of falling onto a surface associated with a specific hazard, for example when working on a steep slope. Scaffolds are widely used temporary structures on construction sites that allow workers to work at heights safely and comfortably. They are especially important in the construction of large buildings where access to high places is needed. Scaffolds consist of metal frames to which work platforms are attached. These allow workers to safely reach high places and provide a stable surface for tools and materials. Scaffolding workers must have a scaffolding work certificate. Scaffolding from 2 meters to 9 meters in height may be erected, altered, and dismantled by a person who has completed training and is qualified. Erecting scaffolds higher than 9 meters requires at least 3 years of work experience and additional training. When working at heights, everyone must ensure that necessary precautions are met. All scaffolds over 2 meters high must have hand, knee, and foot guards. For roof work, the scaffold guardrail must extend 1 meter higher than the finished roof edge all around the roof, and the distance between the scaffolding and the building under construction must not exceed 30 centimeters. In the absence of adequate guardrails or other safety devices, certified safety harnesses must be used when working at heights. When working on scaffolding, special attention should be paid to restrictions and hazards on scaffolding and work platforms, on the use of safety measures, on the organized storage and safe placement of materials. During work, it is important to ensure proper use of tools and materials, use safety measures on stairs and work platforms, and ensure their proper securing. Implement specific procedures according to the nature of the work, whether it be plastering, painting, or other construction works. After completing the work, remove all materials, tools, and construction debris from the scaffolding. Clean and organize the work site, and close the access points to the scaffolding with appropriate signs and barriers. Every worker must be familiar with the first aid guidelines before starting work. The most important thing is to act calmly and thoughtfully. Try to assess the condition of the injured person. In the event of a serious work accident, immediately call the emergency number. Provide assistance to the injured person within the available means. If necessary, stop dangerous devices, turn off the power supply. Notify the project manager. If a worker does not have sufficient knowledge of first aid, wait until a trained worker or ambulance arrives. Note that the use of incorrect first aid techniques can further aggravate the condition of the injured person. Therefore, acquiring first aid skills must be taken seriously. Fires on construction sites usually occur due to electrical equipment, incorrect work techniques, or the use of open flames. Since a fire accident can cause very serious damage, every employee must be familiar with the emergency procedures before starting work. In the event of a fire, the safety of employees must be ensured and they must be quickly evacuated or rescued from the endangered area. The person who discovers a fire has the obligation to warn other people on the construction site of the danger. If necessary, immediately inform the alarm center, the location of the fire, the extent of the fire, the burning object or material, and answer the questions asked by the rescue worker. Close the doors and windows to prevent the spread of the fire. Start extinguishing the fire as far as possible. Upon arrival at the scene, the person who discovered the fire or a representative of the property owner must inform the firefighting and rescue team about the results of the personnel evacuation, the origin and extent of the fire, potential danger to other individuals, other possible hazards associated with the fire, explosions, dangerous chemicals, electrical equipment.